Buongiorno. Hello. Welcome to Angela's Kitchen. I'm Angela and this is my kitchen. Today we're going to make pasta piselli con brodo di pollo. Now what does all of that mean? We're going to make peas with pasta in a chicken broth, and we are also going to make stracciatelle con brodo di pollo, which is an egg drop type of soup, a very, very delicate soup. First of all, let's look at the utensils that we're going to use. We're going to use a 9-inch deep skillet such as this with a lid. We're going to use a 2-quart pot. We'll need a colander, a wooden spoon, a prong for turning bacon. We're using bacon today. Measuring spoons, and a small frying pan in which to do up our bacon. As you see, I've already started that. These are actually 4 slices of bacon. All the fat has been removed, and they are very, very crisp. So I'll just transfer this to the stove right now. Now the ingredients that we will need for our piselli con pasta are 3 tablespoons of olive oil, a medium-sized onion, which I have minced, 1 pound of frozen baby peas. If you notice, I take my wooden spoon, they're still slightly frozen. Pepper to taste. I'm not adding salt because there is salt in our chicken stock. 3 tablespoons of Parmigiana cheese. The bacon, which I mentioned, 4 slices of bacon, crisply done. 3 cups of chicken stock. And if you remember, if you have our tape number 3, this is where we prepared our chicken stock. We made quite a big batch, so I can use it for many, many soups. 1 teaspoon of fresh parsley, which is equivalent to about 3 sprigs of parsley. Now, if you're using dry parsley, just use 1/2 teaspoon, because by the time it reconstitutes itself, 1 teaspoon of dry parsley would be an awful lot of parsley and would tend to get bitter with too much in your cooking. And again, 1 teaspoon of fresh basil, which is equivalent to 3 nice-sized fresh leaves. If you're using dry basil, just use 1/2 teaspoon. And we will be using 1/2 pound of tubetti. Tubetti is spelled this way, and all it means is little tubes. And if you come closely, you will see that they look like little tubes that have been cut in teeny tiny pieces. All right, would you join me at the stove now? All right, we are now putting the 3 tablespoons of olive oil into our deep skillet, and our heat has been raised to high. As soon as the oil becomes aromatic, which won't take very long, we will add our onion. I'm going to start the water for my tubetti. Now this is a 2-quart pot, and you see I've filled it to about, I would say 3/4 of the way. We'll put our heat here on high so that by the time the peas are cooked, we will almost have the tubetti cooked at the same time, and it'll save us some time. The oil is now aromatic, and as you see, it is moving around in the pan, which means that it's time to add our onions. We're just going to allow the onions to get a little glaze on them. We don't want them browned. So that will take just a few seconds. The oil is good and hot. I have lowered the heat, however, now because we don't want the onions to scorch. As soon as they become glazed, such as they are now, slightly limp and translucent, I'm going to raise the heat again to high. At this time, we add our chicken stock, and this is 3 cups of chicken stock. These are each about 1½ cups, so 2 for our 3. And as soon as our chicken stock boils, we will add our peas. Now, the secret to this very delicious soup is that we're not adding water to cook our peas. We're cooking them in very, very fine-tasting chicken stock. So as soon as this boils, as I said, we'll add the peas. Our stock is really dancing here, boiling rapidly. We're going to add our 1 pound of frozen baby peas. Now, just as the package instructs you, when your peas, that is the stock, when the stock comes to a boil again, we will lower the heat to a simmer and give it only 6 minutes. All right, now as you see, we have 2 pots going at one time. Our peas have come to a boil again, so I am going to cover them and lower the heat to between medium and medium-low and simmer for 6 minutes. And now I'm going to add our tubetti to the boiling water. No salt added because there is salt in our chicken stock. And when this comes to a boil again, we will give the tubetti only 8 minutes instead of the 10 to 14 minutes required. Now the reason being for that, we're going to, when we add the tubetti to the peas, we're going to allow them to continue cooking for a few minutes so that they absorb the lovely flavor of the chicken broth. Okay, the peas are ready. Turn them off. And we need to give the tubetti 2 minutes more. In the meantime, I'm going to turn on the front burner here to warm up our bacon, which is nice and crispy, just to warm it up a little bit. The tubetti are ready. I'm going to transfer them to the colander in the sink. You notice I have a colander with little feet so that it's freestanding and I don't have to have another hand to make sure that it doesn't tilt over. And now if you follow me to the stove, we'll add this to the peas. All right, we're adding our tubetti to our peas. I had just momentarily turned the heat on again to let it come to a boil again. And now I have turned it off just so that it's hot, not that we need to cook it any longer. All right, give that a twirl. Turn off our bacon, which is nice and hot. At this point, we add our teaspoon of fresh parsley, our teaspoon of fresh basil. Bear in mind, if you're using the dry basil and the dry parsley, add that to your peas as the peas are cooking, because you will need time for the dry flakes to absorb the moisture. All right. Now, we're going to transfer this to a serving bowl. However, that won't be necessary at this time. What we do then is add the bacon to the pasta piselli, and each person will get one little piece of bacon like this, or if you prefer, you can crush this into very fine pieces. Now here we have our pasta piselli. I've put 1/2 slice of crisp bacon in the center, and I've added some Parmigiano to taste, Parmigiano cheese, and also one very important thing, a couple of turns of your black pepper, and there you are. You have a beautiful hearty dish. Pasta piselli con pollo di brodo. Here we are again. This time we're going to make stracciatella con brodo di pollo. Stracciatella simply means like torn little rags, and that's just what our egg is going to look like, little bits of torn little bits of cloth or paper, believe it or not. And the base of that is eggs, our eggs and your Parmigiano cheese. We're going to need a 4.5 to 5 quart pot. A 4-quart pot would probably do as well because we're only going to use 2 quarts of chicken broth. We'll need a wire whisk, a small bowl in which I've placed our eggs, and a sieve. Now for the ingredients, we're going to use 8 cups of chicken broth, 4 eggs, 6 tablespoons of Parmigiano cheese. We're going to reserve 2 tablespoons to sprinkle over the individual plates. Incidentally, I don't know whether I told you earlier, the pasta piselli was enough for 6 to 8 people, 6 serving them very generously. The same with our stracciatella soup, 6 to 8 people, depending upon whether it's going to be your main dish or just a little side dish. We're going to need some nutmeg and a teaspoon of parsley. Again, if you're using the dry parsley, a half a teaspoon, and white pepper. This is a very delicate soup, and so we don't want to inhibit it with little dark specks, and so we'll use white pepper in its place. How would you meet me at the stove, please? All right, I have one of the 1.5 pints. Second, this is 2 quarts or 8 cups of chicken stock. You see how easy it is when you make it ahead of time. I freeze this. And when I'm ready to use my chicken stock, I take it out the night before and put it in my refrigerator. And if you are working people coming home in the evening, you've got your stock all made, and you'll see how fast this dish is, and it's very, very good. Now, when the chicken stock starts to boil, then we're going to add our egg mixture. Right now, we're going to work on the egg mixture. Here's my wire whip, and here's the bowl with the eggs in it. I'm going to work on the eggs. And you don't have to whip it very, very much. Just mix the white with the yolk, like so. Next, I am going to add, there are 4 eggs, so I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of cheese. This is Parmigiano cheese. To the egg mixture. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And if you remember, the recipe called for 6 tablespoons. The other 2 we're saving to sprinkle over the individual dishes. I'm now going to mix the cheese with the egg. Make sure you get the sides. Again, just until they have mixed nicely. Then I will add a pinch of nutmeg. Now this nutmeg was ground, but you can get it already ground in your stores. A pinch, of course, is just as though you were pinching it. About this much. Put it in your egg mixture. And again, mix that. And as soon as our chicken stock is boiling, we're going to transfer this to a sieve and have it drop into the soup, and we'll see how we do that in just a moment. The broth is boiling nicely. We're going to transfer the egg mixture, a little at a time, into the sieve, and just shake it like that. You really don't have to shake it that vigorously, as you see. If some of it gets stuck on the bottom because of larger pieces of maybe an egg or something, then you can shake it. And at the very end, what I do is take my wooden spoon, you see there's some left here, and just crush it through like so that you get all of that nice mixture into your broth. And you see there's a lot of it that comes loose like that. And if you like, you can also scoop this out like this and just drop that piece in like that. Now you notice that some of the egg, let's lower this because we don't need it that high right now, is coming together. So what you do, take your wire whisk and gently twirl around in your soup. Now a half minute is all you will need for the eggs to congeal, as they have here. As you know, that doesn't take very long at all. Turn off the heat and let it stand for a few seconds. When we make our individual portions, we will add our parsley, our cheese, white pepper, and if you like, another pinch of nutmeg. All right, if you join me at the counter now, I'll prepare a nice dish for you. Here is your stracciatella with brodo di pollo, to which I've added a little bit of fresh parsley, pepper, Parmesan cheese, of course, to your taste, and a dash of nutmeg. Ora ecco, here we have our pasta piselli con brodo di pollo, and here we have our stracciatella con brodo di pollo. This is the last in our 3 series of broth soups, different kinds of soups that you can make with your 2 kinds of broth. And in our future tapes, we will be doing seafood, poultry, meats, eggs, hors d'oeuvres, desserts, and what have you. Allora, arrivederci, alla prossima volta from Angela's Kitchen. Ciao!